Good evening, everybody. Jason here again. Tonight, I want to get into a message that started forming in my mind and heart the night of revival at Warm Hands. As I was sitting there listening through the music, through some of the things that Mike was talking about, and some of the other speakers that were there, a theme kind of developed, and I was seeing a string between purpose and life repurposed. And I really want to focus on that. I'm not entirely certain how to start this. I've never gotten up and given a testimony. There's only been a few people I have told a little bit in bits and pieces about my past. But I think in this video and the word that I was given, a lot of that might come out. So I'm going to apologize ahead of time if I happen to get any kind of emotional. I've been working on these things for a number of years now. And the relationships that are tied into them are either better or different or just outright worse, which I'm sure that many people can understand in their situations, whatever they may be. It doesn't matter if you're the perfect Christian. It doesn't matter if you are a street urchin. It does not matter if you consider yourself to be an addict. It does not matter if you consider yourself a Christian but just imperfect. These things affect us all. I want to start with a Bible verse. I think this is extremely important to what I'm going to be getting into here. So Jeremiah 29:11 says to us, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." What an amazing thing. And I could back that up too with God foreknew us. He crafted us in the wombs of our mothers. He knew every hair on our head, every thought that we would ever have, everything that we would ever do. And if you look at the end in Revelation, the book's laid out. He knows who is going to be his. And I think that has a huge effect on us in our regular daily lives, even right now. How he treats us, because he's beginning and end. So, I'm going to say it right here. I'm going to look you in your eyes, and I'm going to tell you, I am an addict. Okay? And some of you can like, wait a second, Jason, you're an addict? What do you mean? What do you mean you're an addict? Not in the conventional sense. Or at least not what a lot of people think about addicts. Sure, I spent time in drugs and alcohol from about a few days before I turned 18 until 22, and then for a few months after my children were born. Again, there was a separation there, except for the alcohol. The alcohol kind of lingered a little bit before I was finally able to shake and break it off. But even before then, I was an addict. I didn't know. I didn't understand. Now, my meaning here of addict might be a little bit different, because when I tell you video games, you're going to be like, wait a second, you can't. Oh, yeah. You can be addicted to video games. You can spend more of your time of your life doing that than anything else. And therefore that makes it dangerous because it's an idol. But we're not going to get onto that. That's not where I want to go. I spent a lot of my youth doing nothing but video games. Now, that's probably by and large because I had a terrible family life early on. My mother and father split up when I was 18 months. My mom goes on to claim that, he raped her and he was abusive, alcoholic. To that, I'll speak on. I have seen my dad drink. He was an alcoholic. I made him quit at the age of 15. Well, to my knowledge, he had quit. I told him, Dad, it's either the alcohol or it's me. I was going to break the promise that I had made with him to live with him until I was 18. And outward appearances, he had stopped. As I look back years later and thinking about the things that started disappearing around the house, they all had alcohol content in it. I mean, I understand he now, or at least even a couple years ago, he could not quit cold turkey. That would have made him extremely ill. But I have no real memory of them being split up at that early age, obviously. And I have no real memory of this either, but my mom tells me that she would start taking me down to see him multiple times a year, starting at the age of 5. This was, of course, due to court cases and everything else like that. Like they required her to do this. Eventually, I was flying, back and forth between the two of them from Ohio to Florida 3 or 4 times a year. I would spend my breaks from school down at my dad's house, and whenever school was about to start back up, I'd have to be back up in Ohio. So I really didn't get to see him very much. So I didn't get to see much of the negative behaviors that she was trying to warn me about or tell me. All I saw was that, whenever I would get down there, his dog, would be extremely happy to see me, and he was extremely happy to see me, and he would spend as much time as he possibly could with me because that time was limited. That would usually look like us going to the arcades or going and doing go-karts or just having a whole lot of fun, just doing whatever I wanted, really. And at the age of 13, things had gotten, or by the age of 13, I should say, things had gotten kind of rough between me and my mom. And I had protected her from her second husband, the father of my half-brother and sister. And I had pulled a knife on him. And the following court case after that one was, okay, well, what do you want to do, Jason? Where do you want to live, from the judge? And I chose my dad. And I went down to live there for the next 4 years and something. I left 5 days before my 18th birthday, after graduation. And while I was there, I was into a number of different things. I was still nerdy. I still spent a lot of time in video games. I spent a lot of time with my Legos. I was addicted to that too, if that's what we want to call it. I was addicted to going to church. I was addicted to going and fishing or scuba diving, which my dad had got me PADI certified when I was 13. I really enjoyed martial arts, and I thought, okay, this is what I'm doing with the rest of my life. Absolutely. And I had gotten my black belt certification, and then I got my second degree black belt certification. I'm like, okay, next certification, 1,000 hours worth of classes, and I've got my life set. This is my purpose. I'm going to be teaching karate for the rest of my life. It's great. God says, not so. Not so. I think it was that year, maybe the year before, for my birthday. My dad's friend had brought over a bunch of computer parts I was already into computers a little bit. I mean, just kind of like playing around on them with the whole video game. But I mean, there wasn't video games at that time. We were working off of text-based. You had to imagine everything off of floppy disks, 2.5s, if you're old enough to remember that. And he comes in on my birthday. He drops the parts all over my bedroom floor. He says, "Today you're going to build your first computer." Okay. So I followed, him along is what he's telling me and teaching me to do. At 13, he does the same thing. He says, "Today you're going to learn to upgrade it." I said, "Well, I remember how to do all this." I've kept that knowledge for 27 years now. And it's part of what I'm doing now. It's part of my current addiction, is if we, again, want to use that word. I'm addicted to computers. I love computers. I love working on computers. I love building computers. I love using my computer to do my research and the other things that are in my life. I'm not using my computer right this moment. I'm using the new technology. Phones. Yay. Not so much addicted to those. Except for maybe, again, the games. So, through high school, I got into marine biology. I went to a magnet school for this, of course, in Hollywood, Florida. And I enjoyed the time there, other than the bullying that I got. When you're tall and very skinny and you come from up north and people don't know you, of course you're going to get picked on a little bit. That's cool until senior year, when they got you on senior trip and you managed to out wrestle one of their state champions. Imagine that. That's when I finally got respect there. Too late. Oh well. I thought, okay, well, if things don't match up with the karate, I've got marine biology to fall back on. A couple months later, I don't have either. I don't have karate. I don't have marine biology. Everything just imploded in Florida. When two strong wills collide, when father goes against son, or son goes against father, something has to give. And I gave. I gave up everything that I knew and figured that I had. And I found myself back in Ohio with nothing except for my video games and old friends. Those old friends had gotten new things that they like to do. They pulled me in, and my addiction quickly changed to weed. I did that for a little while. I never really progressed to other things. I did try Ritalin once, Vicodin a handful of times. Wasn't for me. I didn't like how it made me feel. Weed was great, though. And booze, of course. I've got some funny stories, but that's where my addiction held me for just a little bit. Couple years just spinning in place, really. I was angry at God. I was angry at my dad. I was angry with my mom and my grandmother on my dad's side, because after a little while I realized that they had lied to me. See, my dad had disappeared, and I was asking, like, where is he? Where is he? I don't know where he went, and they were telling me they didn't know. Police were looking for him, and then after a couple months of that and some strange experiences on the phone with my grandmother, my dad wound up in jail. Now, this is not something that I knew directly. My aunt, whom I love and cherish, after we got reconciled here recently, called me and told me that he had been arrested for murder. I didn't think he was capable. That may be the truth of it, though. He, to this day, claims that it was in self-defense. I believe him. Now, where are you going with this, Jay? In 2003, I think it was, I met my wife online. Again, video game. This one was all text-based. Have to use the imagine, the old imagination. That was my addiction at the time, other than work. And we lost touch with each other for a few months. And then we got back in touch again, just before, I think it was the end of 2003. Maybe it was 2002 and then 2003. Doesn't make a huge difference. And we started talking again, because I recognized her on the same game. And she's like, yeah, I remember you. And, we just started talking. And then I came out here to West Virginia. Little did I know that God was going to plant my feet here. I didn't know what was coming. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of floating along with life. Everything else was controlling me, and I was just at the whim of whatever was pulling my strings. At the time, I had that victimhood mentality. And I was a victim. But little did I know that after being here a couple years, that one of my earliest sincere prayers came true. I had asked the Lord when I was about 13, one, that I would be a father by the time I was 25, and two, that I would always be home for my children. Number two came true first. At the age of 18, I was diagnosed with scoliosis. And that almost kept me out of boot camp when I tried to go when I was about 19, I think. But I got a waiver and tried to go in again. I got medicaled out for another reason. Where's my life going, Lord? I didn't know. I wasn't talking to him at the time. I was still angry. Keep this in mind. I was still frustrated with him and what happened in Florida. Almost a decade went by. Anyway, so my daughter was born when I was 25. And already at that point, I understood I had to become a better person than what I was. As I was a toxic human being. Nobody who is currently watching this would have enjoyed that version of me. So I started changing myself. I had to be better for my daughter. And I was still wondering, what am I supposed to be doing, Lord? Again, I wasn't talking to God. This is now, as I look back, what was I supposed to be doing? At the time, I was still doing video games. I was wasting my time working on disability. Just wasting my years. And then my son was born when I was 28 or 27. 2.5 years separate from my daughter to my son. And I understood from the very first sonogram, the very first one, no possible determinate sex at all. I looked at it and I said, that is my son. That's my son. Everybody tried to tell me, no, you don't know that. It could be a girl, you don't know. I said, no. Nothing that you say will change my mind. I said, that is my son. True enough, I was vindicated at 20 weeks. It's a boy! I went out into PMU, okay? Ultrasonics in Beckley. Out into the lobby. It's a boy! I was a proud papa. But I was still a garbage human being. Nobody here would like me. There might have been one who did. I think Bill had already come around and found me working on computers. That had been my purpose for a little while at that point. I don't remember exactly when I started doing things around here. Now, anyway. I believe it was before I started coming back to church. So I set upon myself again, like, I got to do better. And my wife was like, well, how do you act when you're on the weed? So again, this is the couple months I mentioned. I bought a bag and just a bowl here and there, just to keep myself mellowed out. But I didn't like what it was doing. It was making me paranoid and worried. I was concerned that where I would hide my clothes afterwards and I would hose myself down with Febreze and stuff like that, that it was going to bother my children. And I got to the point where I was like, no, I got to put that down. I don't want to get back into that. I don't want to go back to that addiction. I didn't mind the video game addiction. That didn't seem to be a problem for me, ever. So I went back to, I got to be a better daddy. Well, that didn't come natural to me. Not at all, unfortunately. I had to be taught. My son required birth to 3 to come in because he, after a few months, developed what they called neophobia. He did not like trying anything new. He did not take to new textures and tastes. And they had to work with him for like a year or so, just trying to get him to be comfortable with things on his hands or in between his fingers or toes, and just playing in like little tubs of beans and rice and sand. And it was hard to watch him be so afraid of everything. But through that time, they were teaching me how to be more patient with him, loving, caring, and kind, because I had forgotten how to be. Again, I had a bad family life early on. I'm not trying to make excuses here, but I did not have good role models from my mother's side of the family. I was essentially a zombie as a child. I had no interest in life or family. I had a little interest in friends, but most of them could care less. I had a small group, but again, not where I'm trying to go with this. So, after a couple years, when my son could be his silly self, I'm gonna share one of these with y'all. There was an evening he couldn't have been maybe 3, 4, somewhere near, and it was after bedtime, and he had come down the stairs and standing in the hallway amongst the baby gate, and I was playing at my computer, which was directly across from the baby gate where we were at on Wick Line, and he gets to talking with me, and I said, "Boy, you better take your behind back up them stairs and get back in that bed." He jumps up, he goes, "I can't." I died laughing. I really did. That boy's had me giggling my entire life. And I'm thankful to God for him. I'm thankful to God for my daughter, too. They so much. Living for them and doing the things that I need to do for them has become my purpose that I gave myself. We all have purposes that we give ourselves. But really what I want to get into tonight, what I want to get into with this message is the repurpose or repurposing of our lives from God. Well, Jay, how does that tie into that story that you just told? It doesn't. It doesn't. Okay. But keep in mind, I was still, during this time, angry with God. I was angry with my dad. I was angry with my dad's side of the family, even though my aunt hadn't, deserved that. She was the only one who did right by me. So, a couple years later, after that story, which we've been here in this house for coming up on 7 years, I think. Maybe 6. A few years before we moved out of the Wick Line house, my son would start telling me that he's seeing things in the bedroom, that he's seeing things in the hallway, that he's feeling things. Now, I recognized this, and I tried to dissuade it. I said, "Son," I said, these things, I don't know what you're going through. I had seen ghosts when I was young. I had felt their presence. On a missions trip, I had felt the presence of a demon. It was squirming. I mean, it was racing all over this prison cell. It was not happy with our presence. It was a Christian martial arts place that I was going to at that time in Florida. And we did demonstrations, teaching the gospel. Got to see a handful of people get saved. It was awesome. But back to it here. So, to kind of calm him down and help him adjust, Reethi decided that she was going to sleep in their room. She woke up one night and she opens her eyes, and in the corner of their bedroom, sure enough, she sees something clutched to the wall in the corner up by the ceiling. And what she describes to me is demonic in nature. She woke me, she called, and then she went and turned around, she called the the Catholic Church up here on Euler. 3 o'clock in the morning. He came out first thing in the morning, after sunup. He said directly to us, he says, if somebody's calling me at 3 o'clock in the morning telling me they see something in the house, he says, it's the first thing I'm doing. He came out and he blessed the house. He walked all around, holy water, prayers, and the house felt better. I felt better. And just before he left, I asked him, can I talk to you? He said, absolutely. So we went out to the porch and we talked for an hour. And out of me just felt everything that I had done. Everything that I had done to myself and to others. And I felt even better. And as he gets up to leave, I asked him, I said, can I hug you? He said, sure. And I felt even better. I felt the acceptance that I needed to really turn around and think about what I had given up, what I had already known before when I was younger, that I needed God in my life, that I needed His assurance, His love, His forgiveness in order to live, in order to forgive myself, in order to forgive others. I didn't know that was pretty much the first step back to His purpose for me and the things that He had planned for me. Plans to prosper me. And I'm not talking prosperity gospel. I'm not talking about making money here. I'm talking about just the better things in life. Okay? So, after that time, I was thinking, okay, Lord, what do I do? How do I get plugged back into a church? You know, I'm 29 or 30 at this point. And I'm like, I may have been 28. Probably 28, 29, somewhere. Sounds better. Sounds right. I'm an adult. And I don't know how to get plugged into a church. It's okay. I know what I'll do. I'll find my old church on Facebook or something. I'll start watching there. We had a big old screen TV, and you know, my kids are little. I'm gonna take them to church. We're gonna sit here. We're gonna watch my old teacher, my old preacher from Calvary Chapel, Fort Lauderdale. And it was awesome. I was like, yes. And I just started feeling the stirring of the Spirit again. Something was renewed in me. And my attitude changed a lot. Now, I'm not saying it all went away. There's still problems, even today. I'm not perfect. I hate when it happens. But I was changing. God was repurposing my life already. Again, I didn't know. After, I think it was 9 months, a year, trying to do that, which I didn't really, I mean, I was only getting Sundays at the time. I don't think there was anything really being broadcast for Wednesdays, or at least I don't remember there being. I felt something missing. And I started searching myself, and I was like, what is missing for me, Lord? I was like, fellowship. I don't have anybody to lean on in my faith. So I started looking for churches locally, and I went to, I don't know, 3 or 4 of them. This Sunday, this one, that Sunday, that one, that Sunday, that one. And I landed at Oak Hill Nazarene. And the environment, the people, the songs felt like home. I said, yes, Lord, this is it, ain't it?
Oh, come on.
Sure enough. Shortly after, we got a flyer through Lacey's school for Vacation Bible School. I was like, you know what? This sounds like a good idea. Let's get the kids involved here, and we'll see what goes on. Well, I didn't know anybody there really. I had only just been there like once or twice myself at the time, and so we went to Vacation Bible School. Just me and the kids. Ruthie wasn't really involved. She didn't want to be preached at or anything else like that. She was still very hesitant to try to come to the church at all. By the end of the Vacation Bible School, I got her in there maybe once or twice. I don't really recall. But as the kids were in class doing, their little learnings and their little crafts and stuff like that, I was in the gym with the other adult males. John, not Leg, I don't know the gentleman's last name, unfortunately. Even after 11 years, I only knew him as John. And that's a failing on my part. I'm sorry. And this black gentleman, sorry, that's all I can remember. And I never knew his name. I only knew him as On the Wall. They would play like a dodgeball type game, but it was a big old earth ball, and they would roll it around on the ground and try to tag the kids with it. When the kids were tagged and told on the wall they had to get out, and then the last one, standing was the winner. And I got involved in that. Just playing around, just trying to be physical and active and be somewhat remotely connected to the activities going on. I didn't want to go home and just leave the kids there alone. And Tristan, my son, had separation and anxiety issues. And Lacey was just really little, 5, 6. I believe 5. Just like kindergarten area. And I really enjoyed that. And that first Vacation Bible School, the lady running it, Libby Whitmore, if you happen to see this, hi. She grabs me, she's like, hey. I'm like, hi. She's like, can we use you downstairs as a hall monitor? Okay. Immediately serving the church. And I wasn't even in the church. I didn't mind. Sure, I'll make sure that the kids are safe. It taught me to do the roles, and I was learning the kids by face and name, and most of those kids still go. And they've known me for years. And it's awesome to see them. more repurposing. After a little bit, I got tapped by the youth pastor, Paul, and he was doing something in the back room, and I was like, "What you doing there?" And he says, "I'm writing a skit for a puppet," and he says, "I need somebody to do the voice." That was one of my early things. I would do voices. I loved, my cartoon times, and I tried to mimic their voices the very best I could. And I was decent at it until I got kicked in the throat, of course. So I said, "What kind of puppet?" And he said, "B." I said, "I could probably do that." He says, "Okay, we'll come by and do an audition, and we'll hear you and see what you think." So okay. So I'd never done any puppet work. Never at this point. After one little quick lesson that he gave me, that I remember anyway, and then using my voice to do Busby, a whole nother purpose added to my life. It was short-lived, but there were funny skits. I absolutely enjoyed the Christmas one, handing him a paper list that was, fairly long, and he just kept on grabbing it and pulling it out. I need to dig out the video if I can find that again somewhere. Hilarious. To me. That was my own little addition to the script. It's going a bit longer than I thought it would, but it's good. This is, again, testimony and talking about repurposing and how my life has changed here. And I want to tell everybody, your life will be repurposed too. When you grab a hold of God and He grabs a hold of you, okay, saved and sanctified, when He grabs a hold of you and you allow Him to change everything, life will be something different. So when God gets a hold of you and you give everything up to Him and you allow Him to change your life, and that repurposing comes. Like I said, I was repurposed to do VBS. Didn't know that. I was repurposed to be a hall monitor. Then given the purpose of being Busby for maybe a year. I don't even think it was that long. And then I was asked by the worship leader, after my time with Busby was over and I was still doing hall monitor, really, "Hey, you want to do the projection system upstairs?" "Computer guy, hi." Remember? Now, by this time, I had already been the computer guy here in Oak Hill for probably about 6-7 years. Repairs and everything else like that. D&D had shut down. So he comes to me. This was Matt. He says, "Hey, yeah, I'll do that." There was a little bit of contention first, because there was one other gentleman who thought that was just his place. And he didn't take kindly to me trying to step into it, as I had been asked. After a short period of time, though, that was fixed. It was going to be on a rotation, but I guess he just stepped down after a brief run-in with me, I guess. See, this gentleman had been the bane of my mother's existence while she lived with me here in West Virginia for a short period of time, because they worked at the same place. He did not treat her well. And it is because of his behavior that the last chance she gave herself for church and for Christ was ruined. And she gave it up. No more opportunities. And because of my faith, and that I go to the same church that gentleman does, I am outcast by her. That was kind of a downturn. But the word says that those who give up their life, they give up their mother or their father or their friends for his name's sake, will be given more in the kingdom of heaven. As painful as it is, I had to give it up. And I let her make the choice. I mean, she was saying some disgusting things about me. I'm like, I'm your firstborn son. I gave her the option, and she separated contact. She didn't care. What does God do? 6 months later, after losing that contact with my mom, he gives me my dad back. Oh, not 6 months. Maybe like a year and 6 months. I'm sorry, I'm kind of over the place with times. Time for me is a difficult thing because my memory doesn't... It works well, but it don't work well when I try to assign dates and times to it. This is fine. The Lord is good in all that he does. It's not important to me, the times, I guess. The events are. So getting back onto track, I'm sorry for the tangent. Doing the projection system at the church. Being the computer guy. That's just one of the small things that I didn't expect to be my life path. It's like I said, karate was my life path. Maybe marine biology. Definitely not this tertiary computer stuff, building those and fixing those. That's not going to do it. I knew that's where, the world was going, was, computers were going to be the next big thing, but I just never did get into it the way that I should have. So here I am, as I bring this to a close here, I guess. In West Virginia, tiny town Oak Hill, from, I should say, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, technically Pompano, but most people don't understand where that's at. I could say Cincinnati, Ohio, but that's not where I was at. I was in New Richmond, little podunk town, 25 minutes away, still right off the river. Probably not much bigger than Oak Hill here. And my life is anything but. what I would have ever thought it would have been. Because God saw me when I was still in my mother's womb. And he says, okay, how is this going to fit all together? We're going to put him in this position because this church is going to need a guy to run their computers in 30 some odd years. He's going to assist the pastor. He's going to assist the worship team. He's going to help ministries on Main Street. He's going to plug in and he's going to do all these things, and he's just going to be serving in the back. He doesn't need to have a front face. He prefers that position. It's just not important for me to be recognized for all that. I don't want that. I don't want the human recognition. It doesn't make a difference to me. What matters to me is that God put me there. That God is going to use me in that position and anything else that he gives me, whether it be my dreams, whether it be my visions, whether it be the things that he tells me as I'm praying, and I bring them forth to a smaller group because they're important, because they're things that need to be shared, because I want to keep as many people as I possibly can apprised of the things going on in this world right now, as God brings about his purpose, his plans for the end. I'm not going to get into that right now. But I want to tell everybody here, I am amazed when I take the time to really think about that. And all my plans for myself, none of them worked out. That's fine. God's plan worked out for me, just the way he wanted. Once I stopped fighting. Once I stopped trying to take control of my life. And once I stopped trying to feel like a victim of the things that had happened to me when I rebelled. So I'm going to say again, my name is Jason, and I am an addict. But my addiction is God. And his son Jesus, who died for us. I'm addicted to everything that he desires me to do and for me to be. For myself, for my family, for you if you need me for something. Because it's all from him. Anything I'm involved in, it's all for him. How's that going to happen, Jay? Whatever you've done for the least of these, you've done for me. Whatever you've done for your neighbor. Who is the least of these? Who is my neighbor? My life has been repurposed. And it is amazing and better than anything that I could have thought of for myself. That's not to say that there aren't bad things that happen. Oh, there are. Nothing is perfect, except for God. And I have a real good knack of messing some things up. Overreacting. Maybe overstepping my bounds here and there. Sometimes trying to be a better friend than I really am. But God puts those things on my heart as He's repurposed it for His desires, the things that He wants me to accomplish. As He needs hands and feet here on the earth to help Him accomplish those. With that outreach, with that physical touch, with that word. It's all ministry. Be willing to hear God. Listening in to the still small voice. Weed out anything that you think is you yourself. And anything that remains after that, compare it to the Word. And if it agrees with the Word, then it's good. That's how you test that spirit. Follow that. Be bold and follow that. That's the last thing I got for you tonight.
I heard birds. I heard the birds.
Lord, I thank you for helping me get through this. Anybody who knows anything about me knows that I have a real hard time speaking in front of a crowd, and that's probably, Lord, why I didn't speak up on the night of the revival. That and worried about running up against my time limit to see my dad. Lord, I pray that anybody who sees this video, who might even be struggling, wondering what their purpose is, or that they hear my words and they share it with somebody else or whatever, and they hear it. And then they hear their purpose. They understand that their life can be repurposed for you, Lord. They can hear that they can be the hands and feet of God here on earth. That they can make a difference. Not only in their life, but in the lives of those around them. I thank you and I praise you, Lord, for everything that you have done for me. And all the ways that you will continue to work on me, Lord. I am blessed each and every time I see something new in me. A bigger heart, a renewed mind. Thank you, Father, for your love and your correction. I just ask that you continue to guide me, and that you would guide all those who hear this in wisdom, love, and discernment. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. Good night, everybody. I hope the Lord finds you right where you're at, and I hope that you understand that you don't have to do anything before coming to the Lord. You can accept Him, and He will go to work on you. He will change you for what He needs you to be. You only have to be willing. You only have to trust and believe Him and believe God. Good night, everybody.